Alright, so this is a tomato review for the golden currant tomato. Now, this tomato I grew last year, and now I did not plant this, first of all. This is a volunteer that came up. So that's really the only reason why I'm going to revisit this tomato and review it again. But this plant is a very, very aggressive growing plant. It's pretty much almost the same thing, if not the same thing, as the Everglade tomato. And it will spread itself out. Now, this is a pimpinellifolium variety of tomato, so it will grow the same way and it'll get just as aggressive. But this plant right now, and this came up, it was growing through most of the season, but it was only like, I don't know, it stayed that big for like, I don't know, ever. And it just started getting a little bigger like in around mid-July or something like that. And here we are into almost mid-September. And this plant is pushing well over 10 feet. This, you could see it's pushed through the top of my greenhouse. It's already growing along the top of my greenhouse there. It's growing all the way up there, all along the top of my greenhouse up here. I mean, this thing is absolutely insane. I should call it the insane tomato because it's insane the way it grows. I mean, there's just no limits to this tomato. So, I mean, it grows very long. It's very spindly. You can see the stem on it. It's very long and spindly. It's very disease resistant. This is the only tomato plant right now in my greenhouse that it's one of the only. It's not the only, but it's one of the few that are not exhibiting tomato leaf mold, which I get at the end of the year. And it will get it eventually, but this plant, for some reason, doesn't get it very easily. If the leaf mold gets really bad and it stays humid for a really long period of time, eventually it will get on here. But in general, this plant is extremely healthy. It's almost outpacing my Everglade tomato, which, you know, my Everglade tomatoes grow like weeds. You know, here's the Everglade. They grow like weeds. I mean, tomatoes literally come up everywhere. The Everglade tomato is absolute monster. But the Everglade tomato does get tomato leaf mold. So it does get it. It fights it off, but it still gets it. This plant doesn't really get it. It doesn't want it to spread on it. Now, some of the lower leaves might be getting a little bit of early blight or late blight, but even that it struggles with. So this is a really, really hardy variety of tomato plant to grow. And I just wanted to show you, you know, the massive magnitude of this plant. So unfortunately, I don't have any ripe tomatoes, but I do have a flower. Okay, so that's the tomato flower. I do got some of the bracts. This is what they look like, and they get very long. These bracts can get quite long. They can get, you know, 15 tomatoes, 20 tomatoes on a bract. But the good news is I do have some tomatoes that are ripe. Here's a look at the leaf too, by the way. Very beautiful, healthy leaf. I mean, I didn't do anything to grow it. It just grew better than everything else. All right, so we do have some tomatoes right there that we're going to pick these down. Right there, we got those. We got a bunch of them ready. So I'm going to pick those down, and we'll bring those up to the top, and we will do a review at the bench with those right that you see right there. All right. So I'll see you at the bench. All right. So this is the review part of the golden currant tomato, Solanum pimpinellifolium. So it's a regular leaf tomato plant. It is a Solanum pimpinellifolium, and it is an indeterminate tomato. Now, indeterminate tomatoes in general, they are pretty much considered perennials. So that's kind of a misnomer when you hear indeterminate tomatoes, because most tomatoes are perennials. Now, determinate tomatoes, they die off in their native. You see, in their native environment, they will live a lot longer than what we do annually here. But they die off early up here because of, you know, our climate and everything. But in their native environment, they'll live a lot longer than that. So anyway, let me show you what the tomato looks like, if at all possible. very hard to do because it's so small, and I did cut one of these in half. And it doesn't want to cooperate. Tell if you're seeing this clear or not, because it doesn't want to cooperate. But anyway, that's what it is. That's what it looks like. Hopefully that shows up and gives you a clear shot. Maybe try turning the light on. I'm going to have to buy lighting to do these videos because it's just simply the camera doesn't work in lower light conditions. I don't think it does. And it's hard to tell what it's doing on the camera, and I won't know until the editing side. So anyway, that's it. And we'll do a bricks on it. We will do a bricks, and we will see what the brick says. If I could even. I mean, there's really no juice. There's nothing in it. It's just seeds. The whole inside of it is basically seeds. Now, again, this is a currant tomato, so yeah, I got a little juice on there. Alright, it's almost 10 on the bricks, so that's pretty high. That's very high, actually. I think the highest I ever seen a bricks reading was like 12, maybe 12 and a half was the highest I ever seen on the bricks. So 10 is pretty high up there. That's got to be pretty high. But you can see how small this is. Now this is the Blankofken tomato right here. All right, so this is the Blankofken, and that's a really small cherry tomato. Here's Matt's wild cherry tomato, and I believe, is this considered the world's smallest? I'm not sure if this is considered. No, this is either a spoon tomato or it's Matt's wild cherry tomato. But oh, I'm sorry, it's either one or the other. But I think this is a spoon tomato because it's so small. So this is considered the world's smallest tomato. Well, if you look at this one right next to it, these are actually even smaller, and this is the bigger of the golden currant tomatoes. So in my opinion, I think this is the world's smallest tomato right here. These golden currant tomatoes. They're absolutely tiny, and they're fun to grow. You could see in the earlier part of the video how big those plants get. I mean, they just get absolutely enormous. Those plants will grow to 20 feet long, maybe longer in the right conditions. If you live in Florida and you grow this in Florida, that thing will get 20, 30 feet long. So let's give it a go. It's kind of on the sweet side. It's actually very much on the sweet side, but it has like a tomato flavor after it, but not very strong. It's very overwhelmingly sweet. It's almost like a berry. Tanginess, I would say the tanginess is probably, it's really hard to taste test these small ones because the flavor comes and goes so quickly. So I'm going to have to eat like a small little handful of them because I can't really tell and get a good enough amount of that flavor out of these for me to really describe the contrast between the sweet and the tangy. And so we'll do all of those. All right, so tangy wise, I'm going to say the tangy is about 30%, and I'm going to say the sweetness is probably about 40, maybe a little higher than 40, like 41, 42, something like that. It's pretty high. That sweetness is incredibly high. Skins are a little tough, so that's what you gotta just deal with when you're eating these small tomatoes. They're always going to be kind of tough like that because the inside of that tomato is very much like a little berry, and as soon as you bite it, the whole inside comes out and there's nothing but skin left. So it's kind of the way it is. So you got to really chew the skins up, but they're not bad. They chew up pretty easily, but they are kind of on the tough side. So they're very good little tomatoes to eat. You're just going to have to eat handfuls of them at a time, and believe me when I tell you, this plant will put out hundreds upon hundreds of tomatoes per plant, maybe even in the thousands. Once you fill up a container filled with these tomatoes, you just eat them by the handful. You're good to go. You're not going to sit there and eat one tomato at a time. But they are really, really, really a delicious tomato. I really enjoy growing them. This particular plant did come up as a volunteer this year, so I figured, let's revisit the tomato being it's there. But I will offer seed for this at the end of the year on my website, so you can pick seeds up at hrseeds.com. And that's really it. That's your review for the golden currant tomato. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.